I don't train for six-pack abs. I don't train to beat yesterday's PR. I train for 80. Not the number on a barbell, the age. I train so I can still hike hills at 80, pick up grandkids without pain, and dance without fear of falling.
Today I'm going to show you exactly how I do that. Longevity training in real life. It's not about beating time, it's about moving with it. Longevity training is about form over function, consistency over intensity, and function over appearance. The way I train now, every moment has a why, because I've seen what happens when we skip the warm up, ignore those small eggs, and we chase the wrong goals. This is my counter story. And here's what a typical longevity strength session looks like for me.
I always strengthen 3 days per week, and as you can see, the rundown is similar, but the exercises in the middle are what I change. I always start with an active warm-up to get my joints, muscles, tendons, and ligaments warmed up. Heel sweeps are where I start to free up the back of the leg. I then am going to move on to everything in the front of the body, the front of the chest, the abdominal wall, and my quads, as you can see here. I'm going to follow up after this with my rotational based warm-up, so I get everything in the back of the hip as well as some spine rotation. Since I do 3 days of strength training per week, I break them up. Day 1, I focus on my push and core exercises. As you can see here, I'm going to start with push-ups. I like to do 5 exercises total with 3 rounds. I'll then move on after push-ups into my plank taps. These are great for deep core stabilization as well as shoulder and scapular stabilization. I then move on to my lateral line, which I'm going to do with a side plank, and I can further challenge that by moving one leg either in a clam or a full hip abduction to get my hip stabilizers going. I'm going to move on from there into my bird dog. This is going to strengthen the muscles deep in the spine as well as my glutes, shoulders, and core. At the end of this round, I'm going to focus on my obliques. Doing an oblique crunch is a great way to strengthen not only the deep core stabilizers, but the superficial core obliques, as well as some of the hip musculature. After I finish 3 rounds of each of those 5 exercises, I then jump into my cool down and stretching. This way I'm going to take advantage of all of that heat that I've built up into my muscles, tendons, tissues, in order to really be able to get the most out of my mobility. Sun salutations are where I always start. It's a great way to get your heart rate to start to calm back down. You're going to get some stretching going into the muscles in the back of the legs and the front of the abdomen, as well as that little bit of stabilization to be able to hold each pose, focusing on the calves, and then really being able to make sure that you're in touch with your body with balance, as well as all of the mobility that it takes to complete each of these rounds. This blends perfectly into the deep lunge with rotation stretch, which is going to be great for freeing up the muscles in the back of the hip, as well as all of the muscles and mobility in the mid-back. Right after this, I'm going to go into a half kneel, which is going to set me up perfectly for being able to stretch the muscles in the front of my leg, which are my quads, as well as my hip flexors. If I want to add a challenge, I'll add a reach, which will get the muscles in my mid-back, as well as my abdomen and low back. From here, the easiest thing to do is to straighten one leg out in front of me, and then I can do the half kneel hamstring stretch. It's going to be a great way to lengthen all those muscles in the back of the leg. Now, if we bend that front leg, we'll be able to get it out in front of us in order to go into a deep hip rotator stretch. This is known as a pigeon pose. These muscles, when they're tight, have a tendency to pull on the low back, which we really just don't need. And finally, I'm going to love ending on the foam roller pec stretch. And while I'm there, why not add some breathing? So this is going to give me a chance to really calm everything down, stretch the muscles in the front of the chest, and really focus on some diaphragmatic breathing. I can add in some meditation. It's going to be a great way to end that workout. On the second day of the week, I'm going to focus on different strengthening exercises. Although I keep the same warm up and I'm going to keep the same cool down and stretching, the strengthening is going to be different. I'm going to focus on hinging and carrying based exercises. So where I like to start with this one are squats with a kettlebell swing. A nice wide stance and a head-hips ratio will help me squat safely, and then I add the weight of the kettlebell to strengthen that squat. I'm going to move on into lunges with one arm overhead. This is not only going to strengthen the muscles of my shoulder and core, but then also the muscles in my legs, which is going to be very functional for being able to pick things up and lift. From here, I'm going to go into lateral lunges, and I'm going to weight that down with holding on to some free weights. This will prepare me not only for being able to pick things up from an awkward position, but then also stabilize my knee, hip, and ankle. And then I'm going to always go into a single leg because this is going to keep me nice and strong and stable on one leg. And at the same time, I can get some eccentric hamstring lengthening with the single leg RDL. And finally, I'm going to go into a squat with a snatch. So in this exercise, as I squat, I'm going to really make sure I use my arms, my core, and some momentum to be able to lift the weight and drive through my legs, which is where my powerhouse needs to be. And finally, on the third day of my strengthening, I focus on exercises that help me rotate as well as exercises that help me either get up off the ground or get up out of a seat. The first exercise in the lineup are static lunges with chops. As I hold that lunge position, I'm going to get the rotational strengthening by doing a chopping motion, as you can see, holding a weight. Next are going to be Turkish get-ups. I love this exercise. It's going to combine a lot of different motions, as you can see, which are going to focus on shoulder stabilization, but also being able to get yourself on and off of the ground in different variations, whether from a half kneel to stand or from your back all the way up into sitting. So this is a great multi-purpose exercise. The third exercise are bridges with abduction. When you line your back with a band around your knees, pull in the belly button, and as you bridge up and then push out against the band, you're going to be using all of the glutes and the deep hip stabilizers. This is great to help you with bed mobility and all sorts of transfers. You also need to think about the muscles on the inside of the thighs. So doing bridging by squeezing a ball will help with that stabilization. And then adding that lat pull down will tie in those deep lumbar stabilizers with the glute stabilizers. This is perfect for everybody. And then finally, we're going to add in a side plank with a reach through, because really thinking about the side of our bodies and then that rotational strengthening from there will help us with not only posture, but all sorts of dynamic activity that we do on a day-to-day basis.
It's not just about staying strong, mobile, and having good balance. Keeping your heart strong is also super important and easier than you might realize.
Try taking a jog outside, jump in the pool for a swim. You can even go for a walk in the woods, ride your bike to the grocery store, take your dog on a walk, take your kid on a bike ride, and do some heavy gardening.
Here's the thing, longevity training doesn't stop when the workout ends. It's what we do in the quiet times that matter just as much.
This means taking daily walks, staying hydrated, getting enough sleep, practicing breath work, and of course, laughing out loud.
This is longevity training in real life. It's not rigid, but rooted. It's not about saying, how can I look good this summer? It's about saying, how can I feel my best at 80? It's about being able to recover faster as you age. It's about not having those falls, about being able to do all the things that make you you. And that starts today with, how do I think about my reps and sets? How do I want to put that strain on my body to protect my joints for the long term? Because you can last, and that's what's really cool. If this resonates with you with how you want to be able to train, not just for now, but also for later, drop a comment below. And let's build a community that's like-minded and can grow together.
And just as a recap, here's what we covered with the active warm-up, the cool down with the stretching, as well as the 3 days of strength training focusing on different styles of functional training. And at the end, always remember that you want to move daily and with intention.